الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. On hearing this verse, listeners may think that is it Siyam, is it Som again? Is the topic the same from the verse? And the same verse we've been hearing over the last couple of days in Jummah as well. And in the month of Ramadan, we hear this verse quite often. And as soon as we hear this verse, we think, is it going to be the same topic again or what? And that we have heard a lot about Siyam. Som is something we have been hearing over the years so much about. We have been fasting for so many years too. So why is this topic repeated? And whenever there is any repetition, we become disturbed by it. It is astonishing how when it comes to matters of deen, then we do become perplexed when it is a topic that we have heard before. Whereas with regards to other things in our lives, repeatedly doing something doesn't disturb us. How many times we repeatedly look at our mobile phones? We just say, I just looked at it before Salat, now I'm looking at it again after Salat. We just heard about Som in Jummah, now we're hearing about Som again now. So for that we don't feel that we just looked at our phones moments ago and now we're looking at it again. We just ate this and now we're eating it again. Whatever we eat, we do not eat a new dish every time that we sit to eat. There are many repetitions. But those repetitions are fine, especially if it is something that is enjoyable to us. An enjoyable dish is repeated, then by all means repeat as much we do not mind. We exercise as well, we'll exercise daily. We don't feel that, no, I just exercised yesterday, why should I exercise today as well? I just went for a jog yesterday, why should I go for a jog again today? No. And again, mission accomplished, there's few mission guys here as well. We just played the games yesterday, so why should we play again now? We can play 24/7, we don't mind, isn't it? And those are professional gamers, they have their chairs, seats, everything, the whole comfortable, the whole zone, everything. The whole imprisonment, they have their own prison set up within their homes, wherein they are imprisoned on that screen and the events that take place within it. To the extent that when they sleep as well, even in their dreams they see the same characters there. The whole life is that. The same characters they will see in their dream as well. They'll be playing with them in their dreams. They'll be killed by them in their dreams, or they'll be killing them in their dreams. And not only that, but it has an effect, many children, it has an effect on them as well. They become very fidgety. And one of the reasons why they're so uncommon fidgety is because they're always busy. If he's not with the console, then he's with the mobile phone, so they become so fidgety as it is. This is the effect that it has upon us. So in these type of matters, if something is repeated, we do not feel it at all, we don't mind it being repeated. But if somebody mentions to us with regards to Salat again, with regards to Som, with regards to matters which we need to be told often, then we feel that why is it the same thing is repeated over and over. Whereas a lot of times the verse may be repeated, but the topic is not necessary that it is repeated. And if it is something that we have previously heard, then not that we are not going to benefit, we will benefit more from that reminder. The more something is repeated to us, the beneficial it is for us. Repetition. فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, Allah Ta'ala mentions. And the fadhakkir that Allah Ta'ala mentioned here in the Quran is a reminder. And a reminder is something that is continuous. There's takrar in it, there's repetition in it. Just way in the Quran we will find that there are so many repetitions in the Quran. Various incidents are repeated in the Quran. Various verses, various promises, various punishments. These are repeated over and over in the Quran. There may be those who think too much into matters, philosophers for instance, and there are those who in the past, philosophers in the past, who have raised this objection against the Quran. That the Quran, there's too many repetitions in the Quran. This is the objection that they have made, that there is too many repetitions within the Quran. And the reason why they have is because they have taken the book and compared the Quran to any other book. And when you have another book or any other work that you put together, that follows a set pattern. And it is bound to that pattern, where you will have, for instance, an introduction, then you'll have the core matter, and then you will have the conclusion. So it needs to follow that pattern. You're not going to then change and bring the introduction towards the end. So you have a set pattern that you follow. And a lot of work and a lot of writing is dependent on that, and it is bound to that. Meaning that move that, take that away from that sequence, that tartib, then the quality of that does not remain. It is not a classic. It is not a good work if it is written randomly, in other words. And the objection is with the Quran that it is random, or the Quran has too many repetitions. The haqiqat, the reply to this is that the Quran is not bound to any pattern. Allah Ta'ala's kalam is not bound to any fixed way of it being revealed, any pattern, or with regards to any sequence. It is not bound to that. And with regards to the repetitions in the Quran are there because the Quran is actually compassionate. It is a compassion of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala repeats things to us. That's the way a father, when he gives nasihat to his child, he doesn't give nasihat once and leaves it to that. He'll give continuous nasihat. He'll repeat that over and over. If the child makes a mistake, he'll reprimand him once, twice, thrice, and he'll continue 100 times as well. He'll continue reprimanding his child. There's what repetition there. He doesn't say there, look, I've mentioned it once, now why should I mention it again? In the Quran as well, Allah Ta'ala doesn't need to, because Allah Ta'ala has mentioned it once, that's it, why mention it again? Whereas the same philosophers, if one of them or colleague of them, their child does something wrong, and they will ask him that why did the parent, that why do you not reprimand him? If he says that no, I've just mentioned it once, I've told him once, why do I have to repeat it for? They'll tell him, what type of father are you that you don't repeat it? Shafqat, mercy and compassion warrants that nasihat should be given over and over. That we should be reminded and told over and over. The takrar, the repetitions in the Quran, the verses coming over and over, the promises of Allah being repeated, the punishment of Allah being repeated, the waqiyat of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Harun, Yahya. These incidents that are mentioned here and there over and over in the Quran, this is because of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's compassion towards us, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala keeps on reminding us, this way that Ustad who has shafqat, who has love for his student, then he's going to continuously remind them that look, this is what you need to be doing. Learn your work, learn your work, learn your work. And that Ustad who may not have compassion for his student, he won't tell him learn. He'll leave him. Why? Because he knows that tomorrow I've got a good excuse to beat him up. After all, nobody gets beaten up now. Now there's good excuse to beat him up. So I won't tell him learn. But the one where there is muhabbat, he'll tell him, learn it again, learn it. So he's telling him learn it, so that hopefully he will learn it, so he is saved from any punishment, detention or whatever. So the fact that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala repeats, this is for our own good. And just the fact and experience shows us that despite the fact so many commands have been repeated in the Quran, we still not following them. We still do not follow them. So if that was sufficient, then once and that would be fine. But we ourselves, look how we are. We read the Quran, we know all the commands. The same Kutiba alaykum siyam can be repeated throughout the month of Ramadan, but there will be so many who will still not fast throughout the Ramadan. So when something, a topic may be mentioned again or reminded to us again, then we should not become disturbed by it or feel that why is the same thing been mentioned to us again. There is a need for that. It is something that benefits us, and we should not put too much of this logic towards it and put our minds towards it as these people do. And that all that does is that it brings about more objections than actually understanding the matter. There was a farmer, and this farmer, he was extracting some oil and he was selling that on the side. Along with that, he had his ox, and the ox was doing whatever he needed in plowing the earth. A student of philosophy came, and whilst he was there looking at the oil, then he could hear the bell on the neck of the ox. So he asked the farmer that why have you placed a bell on the ox for? Why does the ox have a bell around his neck for? To which the farmer mentioned the reason is that whilst I'm busy doing this work of extracting the oil, as long as I can hear the bell ringing, that I know that the ox is doing its work, it is plowing the fields. If he stops, then that means that, look, he needs to be told. He needs now to get on to it. So at least that reminds me and tells me, keeps me alert that it is plowing the field. To which then that student said, but how do you know it is plowing the field? He could just be shaking his head as well and making the sound of a bell. He could just be shaking his head and making the sound. To which he said, well, you leave your philosophy and go from here. You leave your philosophy and go from here. If I'm going to follow your philosophy, then no work is going to get done at all. So there are those who use their aql to that extent, and in doing so, what happens is they don't get to anywhere at all. A student of philosophy graduated, and when he graduated, he came home, and he was from a poor family in the village, and he thought himself to be very intelligent, very clever. So when he came home now, like we have so many who might be educated, secular educated, and then when they come and they speak to some ulama and alims, and they think that because they have learned alif wa ta and that, so they've only learned that, so they are not so intelligent. But they don't realize that they are the masters of logic and mantiq. The amount that they understand with regards to the fiqh of Imam Hanifa, for example, the Kitab Hidayah, of how much understanding there is there, how much their aql and how much their mind broadens up from that, and how much intelligent they actually become from that, you'll be astonished to that. But how this student who had studied philosophy, he came home. And because he came home, graduated, his father was poor. So he said, let me treat my child. Let me treat him, give some novelty. And their novelty was what? Fried eggs. We'll say, how can that be a novelty? Our novelty is something else. Yes, those who are poor, for them, this is a novelty. It's not something that you get so often. It is we who are spoiled in this manner. I remember while studying in Darul Uloom Deoband, in 1 year specifically, I remember 1 year having a meal with chicken meat. Only once in the whole year, only once in the entire year was chicken meat available. And that too in some dawat, somebody had invited somebody, and then dawat, there was chicken meat. Whereas we might have murg every day. The reason being is that is something there which is very expensive. They're very expensive, they can't afford it. Yes, normal mutton and meat of ox, there is ox, you see. So that is available that they can afford, but when it comes to chicken itself, that is very expensive. So even that for some people, that is like a luxury. What may not be a luxury for us is luxury for others. So he decided, look, he's come now, let me make some eggs and present eggs. So he had only 2 eggs, so he fried 2 eggs. Now there were 3 of them sat there. The father, the graduate son, and his younger son. Whilst he was sat there with the 2 eggs there, the graduate here who thought he was too intelligent, he said to his father that, look, I have graduated and I have achieved such knowledge that these 2 eggs of yours that you've given here, these 2 eggs, I can multiply them and I can into 100. I can multiply them into 100. So how is that possible? So he now starts his mathematics there. That there is 2 eggs. So you have 1 egg, there's 2 eggs. And then with the 2 eggs, you have put it together, a combined egg that makes 3. So there are now 3 eggs. And then from the 3, you have a combination of that 3. One is 3 eggs, and then you have a combination of 3, so that is 4. Now you have 4 eggs, then you have a combination of 4 eggs that becomes 5. In this way, he went to 100. After he completed his 100, what the father did is, he took the 2 eggs there, so he took 1 egg, put that in his plate. took the other egg and put that in the younger one's plate, and he said to his son, fine, we'll have these eggs and other 98 you have. We'll have these eggs and remaining 98 you have. So in this way, it's not good to just use the aql all the time, brother. So in this way, there are those who use the aql with regard to trying to understand the Quran, that what is the point of this, what is the point of that. Soam as well, there will be those who will be saying, what is the point of Soam? People come and say, what is the point of doing Qurbani, wherein Allah Ta'ala does not need the meat, so why we just wasting the animal for? And as long as a person is going to use the aql in these type of things, no amal will take place at all. We won't end up using and making up. That's the way Iblis became who he is, because he started utilizing his aql in looking at the mold of Sayyidina Adam ﷺ and comparing that to himself. That when he's been made out of soil and sand and I've been made out of fire, then I should be the one who should be prostrated for, not me prostrating to this mold. And now he started utilizing his aql instead of utilizing his obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what we suppose, that is what being a Muslim is. That which is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, what I may command, you may command, the government may command, people may command, we can question these type of things. But that which has come down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not be questioned, and there is always wisdom behind it, irrelevant of whether we understand the wisdom and hikmah or not. The qarar in the Quran is something that is beneficial for us. Similarly, any topic for that matter, anything that is repeated is what it is something that is beneficial for us. As I mentioned, with regards to other matters, we do not complain there that, look, I just did this now, I did that not long ago, why should I be doing it again? There we don't mind. The same eggs that we had yesterday, we'll have today again. We don't mind having them again. So there we do not say about the qarar of repetition. But the Quran we do, that isn't the case. So dear friends, and any topic for that matter, that we may have already heard before, if we hear it again, then by hearing it again, we should not think that what benefit is there. I need to hear something new, I've already heard that, I already know that, I have that knowledge. Or maybe at times what does occur is, we hear something many times. On the first, second and third time that we heard it, it didn't affect us. On the fourth time it affected us, we started making amal upon it. So we may assume and we think that the 3 previous times that we heard it, that was for waste. There was no point. Those 3 bayans that I heard, or those programs that I went to, they were not beneficial at all. It is this one that benefited me the most, because I started making amal upon it now. Whereas that isn't the case, my dear friends. The first time we heard it, already we start benefiting from it from that occasion, even though we may not start making amal upon it. The second time too, we have not made amal upon it, but it is still doing its effect. Just the way like any medication, a person is on a course of antibiotics, and that may be for a 7-day course. When you take it for the first day, nobody is healed on the first day at all. The second day you may not feel any difference. The third day even not. Maybe from the 4th, 5th day a person will feel some change coming about within them. Now when it comes to that 3rd or 4th day that the change comes about, we may assume that the medication is now having an effect on us. Whereas the medicine actually had an effect on us from the first day. It already starts having an effect upon us. It's doing its work. But we are noticing the effect of it after 6-7 days of taking the medication. But the first and the second time we took it, the 3rd day we took it, didn't go in vain. We didn't waste taking that medicine. We didn't waste those pills. It still had its effect. Just the way you want to fill a bucket with water. When you fill the bucket and you've got your level, and this is a point where we need to fill it up with. Once you start filling it up, the first few drops will just flow in it and that. And then eventually you'll come to where it's a case of last drop now. And that last drop will fill your bucket to your limit. And you may think that, look, this is the last drop, this is the one that filled the bucket. But this isn't the one that filled the bucket. It is all the drops that were there from the beginning that actually filled the bucket. Similarly, if we have something that we're going to put on the scale, then you need 500 grams. 500 grams of certain seeds, for instance. And those seeds, when you put it onto the scale, when you put the first little onto it, it's nothing at all. And then you keep on putting it until the last spoon may be full you put on it. that reaches 500, you think the last spoon is the one that brought it up to 500. But it was the first spoon that you placed on the scale that all included in it. That made you, that included all of it put together is what brought the amount that you want. So even though it may be a case of that we heard it, it didn't benefit us, we heard it, it didn't benefit, no. Each time we hear something of deen, what it does is it creates within us the ability to accept that for the next time. When we hear it for the second time, it creates within us the ability to hear it for the third time until that ability occurs within us that we are able to make amal upon it. Otherwise, salat as well, why is salat repeated? Why is azan, all of this is repeated for? It is repeated so that this creates within us an ability. Just the way when a person exercises and trains as well, you train regularly on a regular basis in order to increase and reach a certain level. A person will not just train for one day and say, well, I've achieved this amount in one day, that's it, I've managed to do this already. But a person continues to do it. And eventually now when a person reaches a stage, for example, a person is lifting weight, and you begin with what? You begin with what? 2 kgs? Nothing at all. 5 kgs. And eventually you end up where you were. Now you got a dumbbell of 25 kgs. And now you're going to 25. This is how much I'm lifting. 25. But you have to remember that 25 started off from what? You started off with just the 5. And eventually from that 5 to 7 to 10, you increase. If it wasn't for that, you would not be on the 25. Even if it means that on the 25th occasion, we heard a certain talk of the same topic, which means that all the time that we've been hearing it, it's been increasing within us the ability to make amal upon it. It's just that it takes some people longer compared to others. But the effect of it definitely takes place. Every time we take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is having this effect on us. Every salah that we perform, every neki and every virtue, every good deed that we do, it continuously builds up within us. So we should never think to ourselves that only that occasion by which I actually heard something and made amal upon it, that was the fruitful one. All those prior to that, I wasted my time. That is not the case at all. The benefit is there, but the benefit comes gradually. Just the way a child actually develops, daily basis a child develops, but we do not see that development on a daily basis. Just the way now recently we've had all these lockdowns, madrasas, schools have been shut. So when the madrasas and schools are shut, and then when they reopen, now you've seen children after 2-3 months. So when you see the same children every day, they haven't grown. Development has taken place, but you do not notice that. See them after a few months, that all of them seem that look, they've all shot up. They've all grown. But they haven't just grown overnight, the night before coming back to madrasa. It has been a progress throughout those months. There is that development that has been happening within them. And that is the same with regards to our spiritual enhancement as well. That although we may be hearing this verse for many years, and we have been fasting for many years as well, but it is those many years of fasting that we have been doing, that is what developing us. It all is having its effect upon us. And eventually at some stage or the other, that effect will occur. And this is the same for when a person begins doing what? Begins to do tilawat of the Quran, starts off doing some dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Somebody becomes bi'at to a shaykh. Or a person starts performing their salat, starts doing their salat. When a person comes onto this and they start reading their salat, we come into it thinking, expecting that all of a sudden, overnight, we're going to become a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That now that we start reading the Quran once or twice, that all of a sudden now we're going to get the understanding of the Quran. That now that we start doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of a sudden now we're going to start feeling an ecstasy within us and taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now that we're reading our salat, everything in our lives are suddenly just going to become well for us, everything is going to work out for us. A drastic change is going to come about overnight. It doesn't occur that way. It's not going to happen that way. It is a gradual process. And why this is the case is that if we were to achieve our goal immediately, then we would stop doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would stop doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just the way a person who works and earns. If you're just going to overnight become a millionaire, that's what you're going to stop working now. You've achieved, you made the money that you want, you're going to stop working. But a person will continue to work till you get to the need that you want. And the same example here is, if you want to purchase something, and you've been told that, look, this new jacket that you want is going to cost you £5. No, we can't jacket £5. 10 pounds, sale mein ho to. Jacket for 10 pounds. So this jacket that you have seen is going to cost you 10 pounds. So now in order for that 10 pounds, is a case of what, now somebody who doesn't really know, a child who's learning about money and that, and wants, for example, this child who wants the new game, this new game, and the parent tells the child that, look, you're going to have to save up for it. So saving up for it means that that game which is going to cost you 20 pounds, I've upped it from 10 pounds, 20 pounds to game now. We're not talking about jackets, we're talking about games, and that might be cheap. That's cheap? No. So 20 pound game, for instance. So that child thinks that, okay, I'll get 20 pounds and I'll buy it. But the father is going to tell the child that for that 20 pounds, you're going to have to save up. So each time you get your ED 50p or you get £1, then you're going to have to put that £1 aside, and then another £1, another £1, another £1. Eventually, now what happens is he gets the 20th one. But remember, how did he get to the 20th one? That first £1 started it off. The second pound, the third pound, all that started it off, by which then he came to the 20 pounds. It will be 20 years of soul before we might even reach the purpose of fasting. It might even be 40 years of soul before we actually reach the mission and the purpose of fasting. It might even be 60, a lifelong. And what it is, the good thing here is that this child will at least save until he reaches that point. Otherwise, if he just got the 20 immediately, then he's not going to save at all. If we get the mission immediately, then we're going to stop making amal. So we should not come into it thinking that all of a sudden a drastic change is going to come about. And now that we're going to, especially those who are bare to a shaykh, for example, who do tasbih, zikrullah, or zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who may think that for many years now we're doing the zikr, we're doing the same zikr and no changes are coming within us. No kayfiyat or no feeling come within us. No change has come within us. That is that we need to remain perseverant upon it. We have to remain constant upon it. It is that istiqamat upon it that will bring about change within us. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see within us, my dear friends, how punctual we are. And that is how important with deen as well. Punctuality in deen is very, very important, my dear friends. And one example I'll give is those people who are musallis in a masjid, or those who perform their salat. They don't perform their salat for just 5 years, 10 years. There are those who are performing the salat regularly for so many years. Same routine for so many years. That is what istiqamat is. What we think istiqamat is that for the months of Ramadan we are punctually in the masjid. That's istiqamat. That is not istiqamat at all. Istiqamat is that we are regular in the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is something very unique. My dear friends, one person came to, and I'll relate this to our current, our lives as well. How it makes sense. And we've heard this incident so many times. That a murid, he came to Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullah alayhi. And when he came to Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullah alayhi, he spent many years there. After spending many years there, some riwayat say 10 years, he spent 10 years there. And then after 10 years, he said, that's it, I'm leaving from here. Why? He said, I've spent 10 years with you. And in those 10 years, never once have I seen any karamat, any miracle from you. In those 10 years, I've never seen that now you all of a sudden you're walking in the air. You're walking in the air, or you're walking over water, or any karamat that you're doing anything of that nature. We haven't seen anything so miracles produced from you. 10 years I've spent with you, so you can't be a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must be fraud or fake here. So Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullahi said to him, tell me, in this 10 years that you have been with me, have you ever in that time seen me do anything against the Quran and Sunnah? In those 10 years, have you ever seen me go against the Quran and Sunnah? To which he said, no, that I have not seen at all. To which he says, what greater miracle do you want than that? What greater miracle do you want than that? Which is what? Istiqamat, steadfastness. The same Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullahi, on occasion there was a thief. And he was put to the gallows. Why? Because he was to be hanged to death. Because already one hand had been chopped off, his opposite foot had been chopped off as well. Same with the other limbs, now he was to be hanged. Junaid Baghdadi Rahmatullah saw him, and Junaid Baghdadi Rahmatullah came and kissed his forehead. Kissed his forehead. People were astounded. What's happening here? He is a serial thief here. And Junaid Baghdadi Rahmatullah is kissing his forehead. It didn't make sense to them. To which he said that it is not the crime that he's committed that I am acknowledging, but it is the steadfastness of this individual. He's told once his hand got chopped off, so he still didn't leave it. His foot got chopped off, he still didn't leave it. To the extent that now he's on the gallows, he still didn't leave it. If only we had the same amount of steadfastness in carrying out the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now look at the zalim steadfastness that he has in it. That is what he was acknowledging. And that is something that we need to bring about within our lives as well. That it is an entire life here today. 10 years he says, look, in that have you seen me go against the Quran? Do you need any karamat greater than that? In our times as well, my dear friends, any person, young person or elderly person who is punctual on his salah regularly, and on top of that in the masjid regularly, I would say there is no karamat greater than that in our times. In our times, for us, any karamat greater than that, any person who is punctual 5 times salah, and with those 5 times salah in the masjid as well, there is no karamat greater than that. Waqid, there is no karamat greater than that. Because that is something that we find so difficult. We become punctual with our salat. Every so often here and there we become punctual, and then we totally leave reading salat. We don't read salat at all. Or we are reading our salat, but we read it at home. And then we become punctual with our salat in the masjid. We will come in the masjid for a couple of days, and then we're gone again. We start reading salat again for a couple of weeks, and then we're gone again. We start reading salat in the masjid for a couple of days, and then we're gone again. We come and we go, we come and we go, we come and we go. That is not steadfastness. Istiqamah, steadfastness is that we remain persistent on it. Whether it is nice sunny day outside, whether it is raining, it's windy, hails, whatever it is. Whether Isha Salat is 8 o'clock or whether Isha Salat is 11 o'clock. Whether your Fajr is 7 o'clock where everybody has to wake up, or whether it is 4:15. That person who is regular in the masjid, this is his karamat. And this is what makes sense. Wherein you see the halat of how weak we are. That when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions Bashir Masha'ina binuri tama yawm al-qiyamah. When Nabi Kareem mentions that Allah Ta'ala, the glad tidings of what? Of Noor Tama, complete Noor for those who walk, mean those who go to the masjid. Meaning for those who go to the masjid regularly, even when it is dark they go to the masjid. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions that glad tidings for them of what? Noor Tama, complete Noor. And complete Noor is what? It is Iman. That their Iman is complete if they are regular with their salat in the masjid. إِنَّمَا يَأْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Who are those who establish the masjid? إِنَّمَا يَأْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ refers towards either those who actually erect and build the masjid, and it also refers towards those who actually keep the masjid abad, who keep the masjid occupied. And who are those? Allah Ta'ala says who keep the masjid occupied? Man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir. Those who have iman in Allah and the akhirat are those who keep the masjid occupied. That's why it is mentioned, Nabi Karim mentions that this is a sign of a person's iman is what? That the person who is punctual with the masjid, who is attached to the masjid, this is a sign of his iman. This is witness. Now you can say this witness that this person is a mu'min. His attachment with the masjid. We should also be steadfast. And again, this is something that we mentioned over so many times. We have mentioned. It still hasn't come in our us. So the fact that it is continuously mentioned to us is for our own good and our own benefit. That maybe an occasion may come wherein now we have built that istidad, that ability, that now when we told that we should frequent the masjid on a regular basis, it becomes a reality within us. And when it comes to istiqamah, it's not that we don't have istiqamah. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of istiqamah. As I mentioned, when it comes to doing exercise, there's a lot of istiqamah nowadays. Eating, there's a lot of istiqamah there as well. And when it comes to our mobile phones, they're unlimited istiqamat. That's why you have unlimited airtime. Before it was unlimited minutes. Now it's unlimited airtime. So unlimited airtime means unlimited istiqamat with our mobile phones as well. There we can't just put it down at all. There we can't put it down at all. And that is teaching us the lesson of how we should have istiqamat in our deen as well. That be so attached to our deen, we are so attached to deen that we don't want to leave that. Going to the masjid becomes regular. Taking the name of Allah Ta'ala becomes regular. Reading the Quran becomes regular. It becomes something that's part and parcel of our lives. And also, just the way and I'll complete on this, in Sawm in Ramadan, we have the practice of from Subha Sadiq to Ghurub, till sunset, where no eating and drinking, no eating and drinking. Let us also put some type of a cup on our mobile phones as well. That from the time of Asr, when we come for the Majlis, for example, Asr time, or we in the masjid at that time, till Fajr, or till the morning when we wake up. From Maghrib, every night, from Maghrib to the morning, these are golden times, golden period of time. In the month of Ramadan, even more. During that period of time, either put it off, or keep it just for emergency use only. Do that for a couple of days. It will be a great major mujahada for a person. But a person will find a lot of sukoon if you do that and put that aside. There will be concentration in our salah, there will be devotion in our salah. We'll find turning towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, concentrating on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot easier. Otherwise, what happens is, while the iqamat is taking place, whatever we need to, Allahu Akbar, and then Assalamu alaikum. Immediately. Which means that if there was no ruling of that amal-e kathira, major action in salat, we would be on our phones in our salat as well. The guarantee. If it wasn't the fact that it would break our salat, we would be doing that in our salat as well. We would still be there, but we would still be. It's a one-hand thing, isn't it? Chalo, koi na keh ke ye bhi amal-e kaleel hai. Don't make it too clever now. But we would be. That would continue. Even in salat, it would continue. But then again, how much you do? That would continue in our salat as well. And the fact is, we're not even prime minister. Even a prime minister doesn't. Sometimes you wonder that in that 4 rakats from Allahu Akbar to As-Salam, Qiyamah aa gayi, what has happened? No changes has come about. No changes is going to come about in our lives within that 5 minutes, 7, 6 minutes that we have to even that time by text what happened. Even the PM, as I mentioned, is also occupied so busy that he can't even spare 5 minutes without having to see what's happening next. That he is a prime minister, that he's going to every minute also have to give some new verdict, or people are waiting for him to say yes or no here. That we are so attached to that even that 5-10 minutes we cannot give. That even in the masjid, talk takes place. Jummah as well, you find Jummah khutbah is taking place. And even during that Jummah khutbah as well, we told her, look, sit, listen to the Jummah khutbah, whether you understand it or not. Even there we can't put our mobile phones away. And when we do put the mobile phone away, we put it away in our pockets, but our hearts are still there. Our hearts are not devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But our hearts are still there. Whose is it? And especially if we've heard it vibrate, felt it vibrate, and here you hear it vibrate as well. The ting, ting, ting. But that's it. That heart ting, ting, ting. The heart is now looking. I like that Imam, not this Imam. This Imam takes too long. That Imam is fine. This Imam takes too long. Why? Because we must, whose was it? And then when you pick it up, you look at it, by majority of time, 100%, 99.9 times, it's nothing important. It's nothing important at all. How, when it could be important is, for example, one example it can be. A couple of weeks ago, one of our Alim class students was here in Zohar time. And when he was in Zohar time, he was in the masjid, and he had his phone. And I walked in at that time, and he was on his phone, and then he walked out of the masjid. He walked out of the masjid after that. But it was there in my mind, he had his phone in with him. However, not long after Zohar Salat, he came to me in the office and he said, my father just passed away. How does feel Allah Ta'ala unke abba ki maghfirah farmaye? This is a couple of weeks ago now. So, whilst he just came into the masjid, he got the phone call or the message, whatever it may be, that his father has passed away. So he had picked it up, he looked at it because his father was in the hospital during that day. That you can still understand. Okay, that call from that person is something that you may need to look at it or take it whilst in the masjid. Nobody could admonish him for that. Why did you take that phone? Why were you phone in the masjid? His father is in the hospital, and that was the call that told him that he needs to now respond, and he's to the call that his father had passed away. That you could say is genuine. Aside from such type of cases, majority of the time it's not at all. But how attached we become to that. But let us try and use our time correctly this month and utilize it to attach ourselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand what purpose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained so much upon us. Many different things have been mentioned. Whatever we mentioned, Allah ta'ala grants all the tawfiq to make amal upon it. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.